Hey everybody, this is Perch. I got a lot of mails on that South Park episode, the Pandaverse. People wanted to comment on it. I don't know if there's much I can comment on. I mean, I've got a lot of mails like, "What do you think?" Yeah, it's funny. It's not their funniest, but it's funny. For me, the absolute funniest. It's a cliche. I've been watching South Park since the beginning, and I was OG South Park, meaning I saw that little, uh, that Jesus Santa fighting bit before they had their full series, and I remember watching. That's hilarious. But to me, the best episodes, the Scott Timmerman Must Die, that one, the Eric Cartman feud with Scott, kind of is easily one of the top kind of three. The Casa Bonita episode, top three. I mean, those are the funny ones. Them touching on kind of when they really lean into current events. It's funny, and I think they're topical. They do a good job explaining it, but I don't know. I don't have a lot to say about. I mean, it was funny. It was good. I think actually, if I have one comment on South Park, so a lot of the aftermath seemed to. I don't feel like people got the message. It was weird because I saw a lot of people celebrate like, yeah, this episode did a great job defending Kathleen Kennedy and putting her in a good light, explaining how tough her job is. I'm like, I don't think the episode did that. On the other side, like, this is the most scorching attack on woke that I've ever seen. I don't think it did that either. I think that if you're involved in some kind of, say cultural war, and South Park is doing an episode kind of mocking the whole thing, that is a good moment to kind of pause, reflect, and think, hang on a second, am I the dummy here? I mean, everybody, all full stop. I don't think that episode. It makes me feel like some people didn't watch all the way to the end, or maybe they just saw the meme. I don't know. But anyway. But speaking of respect, that's a weird segue. But the respect my authority is kind of in the idea there. Here's a mail. It says, "Dear Perch, recently I got thinking about the relationship between comics and animation as it relates to Japanese and American markets." You thought we were going to talk about pros hating consumers, right? No, we're talking. I like where this letter's going because I think I entirely agree with kind of this treatment. But let's see how it lands. It says in Japan, they have the anime adapted straight from the manga with very few changes, and with rare exceptions like Invincible, that simply does not happen in the U.S. In Japan, they treat cartoons animation for what they are, a medium of storytelling. But America as a whole still only sees them as kid stuff. This causes the big dogs at DC and Marvel to treat them as suck. He means as such, I think, but the typo here, as suck, that works out. Anyway, and as now animation for them is on the back burner more than ever. You can't tell, for example, that if Marvel did a high-budget, faithful adaptation of Frank Miller's Daredevil, probably the character would not be at least 10 times as popular as he is now. Wait, what? You can't tell me, for example, you can't tell me, for example, if Marvel did a high-budget, faithful adaptation of Frank Miller's Daredevil, probably the character would be at least 10 times as popular as he now. I totally agree. The Netflix show proves this. As much as I hate to admit it, Frank Miller is nowhere near the superstar that mangaka like Akira Toriyama or Hiroki Ishii, as a recent example. The only American comic superstar that the general public knows about is Stan Lee or maybe Jack Kirby. But Japan has dozens of superstars who are neither geriatric or dead. Do you think there's any way to change this? No. No, I don't. Not, or at least not for a very long time. Look, we had a divergence in medium, and you hit on it very well. In Japan, comics, manga, and animation was never fully classified as kid stuff. The stuff that was clearly kid stuff was kid stuff. Hello Kitty is kid stuff. It's geared toward children. If you go to Disney or even more so Disney Sea, the stuff they did with Duffy the Bear and kind of all that stuff, it's clearly geared toward kids, and the content is there. It's fine. But it can sit side by side. I mean, not literally. I mean, in some shops in Akihabara, literally. But it can sit side by side with stuff for adults. And there's no stigma or shame. There has been the otaku kind of culture of kind of the nerd who can't talk to girls and is super hyper obsessed with manga. But that is an extreme exaggeration of somebody who likes manga. And the reality is, there's plenty of adult animation that's just treated. One of my favorite movies a few years ago, several years ago now, Your Name was the translation. That movie was incredible. It was animation. It had, it was, you could call it slice of life, but I don't, I mean, it involved kind of multiple time travel kind of elements. And I mean, so I don't know if that's slice of life as Japan does it. But, treated respectfully, honored in theaters. There was no like stigma against it because it was a quote unquote cartoon, just stood on its own. And that's the way it should be. And in the US, there's certainly that it could be that way, but it's not. There's a very, very firm line between quote unquote kid stuff, which is comics. Like the crazy part is you have a comic like Watchmen come out, which, from the jump, from the cover, which involves a button with a bunch of blood around it. This is clearly not for kids. Despite that, there's still like an article written at least once a year of like why some comics shouldn't be read by children. Yeah, no shit. They're not meant for children. And I can even go as far as some of the stuff. I know there was a mail that was written in like months and months ago about books that were banned in certain bookstores and libraries for LGBTQ material, and it's like those books also not for children. The whole topic, the whole thing gets much simpler when you can acknowledge that just because it's a cartoon or a comic drawing, it could still be for lots of different audiences. You do not need to have Watchmen in elementary schools. It shouldn't be there. Things that have graphic depictions of sex, regardless of the genders involved, shouldn't be in an elementary school. That's not a Puritan thought. Lots of cultures understand this. In Europe, they understand this. In Japan, in Korea, they clearly understand this. But in the U.S., there's this idea that if it's cartoon, it's got to be for kids. And even when they've done stuff like Fritz the Cat and Cool World and other kind of animated movies that are also clearly not for kids, there is this very strange attitude where both the company making it has this isn't for kids wink. What are you doing? What's the wink? It's clearly not for kids. You got a cat with an erection. Stop it. And then on the other end, the media, it's very easy to say, hey, this movie is rated R, so clearly not for kids. But anyway, the point I make is you're right. Because of that dynamic in the U.S., because cartoons and comics are constantly seen for kids, it means that any adaptation, if we're going to make a big budget movie, we got to make it for a bigger audience than just kids, which is a strange attitude for Disney to take, but whatever. But we got to make it for more than just children. So therefore, we're going to have to put some adult elements into it, like talking, and it's just the way people's heads go is strange. You could very easily, in fact, as manga has shown, you could do a shot-for-shot adaptation of a comic as an animated show, and you don't even have to hire the best animation studios to do it. Look, I love One Piece with all my heart, but there are definitely arcs. I mean, if you were watching the not the Dressrosa arc, but the one before that, got the island with fire and ice on it. Why am I Punk Hazard? Okay, if you're watching the Punk Hazard arc, you'll notice that the animation wildly varies because there's different studios doing a lot of the scenes. And, it's despite that, it's still a shot-for-shot adaptation of the manga with very, very small changes. And it works. And it's respected by adults, and it makes a lot of money, and it keeps the creators front and center. I mean, in many ways, one of the things that I find kind of shocking is that when I've talked to comic writers, they often say, yeah, but when my comic eventually gets that Netflix deal, wink, when my comic gets that Netflix deal, then I'll have to throw in some more adult elements. It's like, what are you talking about? When your comic is saga, you don't need to throw in more adult elements when you take it to the big screen. You could just adapt it for what it is. And quite frankly, it's the creator shooting themselves in the foot, because the more it changes in its adaptation on screen, the more your credit goes from, writer and creator to inspired by the works of, Brian K. Vaughan. You minimize yourself, you play yourself. And so it's quite frustrating. I think, comics and cartoons should be respected, whether the quality is good or bad, and shouldn't carry with it a stigma that because it looks a certain way, it's definitely for sure has to be for kids. I think that it's frustrating, but more than that, it's a tremendous amount of money being left on the table. I mean, look, the money that is made from fairly faithful, anime adaptations of manga is a lot. It's a big business, and it costs less to produce. If you think about the amount of, Kevin Feige has this Variety article about what's he going to do to save Marvel. Here's an idea. Start an animation studio and start adapting the comics shot for shot. Just do it. Same art style even. You can piece it up, be kind of clever in a way where you're doing the Fantastic Four and you have a couple seasons of Kirby to be fucking rad. And then you go and you have, I know there's some jumps between the two, but you got a Byrne era and you've got a Simonson era. And, that would be pretty amazing to have the cartoon where as the season changes, some of the animation style changes or not, or you just have one consistent, whatever, but do it shot for shot and just see how much money you'll make. You'll cost less. It costs dramatically less. Korea and Japan are proving that. Then going out, trying to hire original screenwriter, doing a new script, doing the update, just you're basically creating something new, then having to go market. Like, it's crazy why you don't do this. So it is about respect. It's totally about respect. It usually is about respect. Comics should be respected. A lot of the problems, including the various culture war-ish problems, would be solved by healthier respect for comics. And I don't know how many different ways you can make the argument. If you do it right, you can make a lot of money. Oda-san is not poor. Rumiko Takahashi is not poor. There's a lot of money to be made. So from a business sense, it's logical to do. From an entertainment sense, it's logical. You get people hooked on comics. For the entire ecosystem, bringing the comics up and selling more of those, it makes sense. Like, any way you slice it, this is the right idea for quality of the content, for respect, for money. It's the right thing to do. Anyway, I'd love to see it. And give me a season of Jack Kirby Fantastic Four. Be happy as I can get. So anyway, thanks for listening.